All right, guys, we are here on the podcast with Tom, and I want to ask him our icebreaker question. And that is, Tom, what would you mandate for mental health?
I would first of all, I'd make running trainers accessible for everyone.
Oh, I love it.
In the UK, we have something called a cycle to work scheme, so you can in your salary when you get paid, it comes out your salary that you can buy a bike and get to work. So I would actually mandate a either a running to work or jog to work or walk to work scheme, and help people get into a good pair of footwear, good bit of kit, get running, get active, and yeah, and basically reward people for doing it. So get an extra 10 minutes. If you ran into work or cycle to work or whatever your hobby is to get to work or whatever,
I love
would
that.
be to you get an extra 10 minutes break because you're good. You know what I mean, and then that kind of thing. So I think that would be my biggest policy. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, just as runners, like you're a runner, I'm a runner, and we know that it wakes you up. Could you imagine how more productive your employees would be during the day?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with the promise of like an extra 10, 15 minute break. Of course I would be. I definitely would be.
And then they like sneak in that 5 minute nap and feel so refreshed. You don't realize the
Exactly.
power of that 5 minute nap. Awesome. Well, I love that policy. That would be a great one. I would add it to definitely mandate that one. Now, I want to
Cool.
go ahead and give you the floor to kind of introduce yourself and give us this background of what mental health or what running for mental health really means for you and how did you discover this?
Yeah, so I accidentally found running. It was a pure fluke.
Accidentally.
At the time I was about 27 and a half stone. So I think, how heavy is that in kilos and pounds? It's over 300 pounds anyway. I was a really really big guy, and my mental health was not in a good place in the slightest. Um, Unfortunately, my daily occurrence was unfortunately trying to take my life and basically not be here. If you think of any way how to do that, unfortunately, I've tried it, and that was in the heat of psychosis, in the heat of my depression, and
Right.
it was quite a horrific place to be. And it all kind of stems back to when, unfortunately, I lost my brother. He unfortunately passed away in 2009, and he was the kind of guy to always look after me. I was quite heavily bullied through school. So from about the age of 4 to about the age of 14, 15, I was, I pretty much every day I was beaten up. People like stole my
Oh
bags,
no.
stole my shoes, and it wasn't a good time. People say it's the time of your life and that kind of stuff. But no, I never want to go back to school ever. Um, and yeah, and unfortunately, Will, like I said, he was the guy, my brother, to look after me. He passed away, and it was literally the same week I found out that I was going to be an apprentice as a mechanical engineer.
Oh no.
So I didn't really cope with my brother's passing. I just kind of like put it aside and just thought, well, man up. It's kind of like what men are
Right.
told to do, and just don't deal with it, bottle it up, and just carry on. So about 5 years carried on, and um, after I finished my degree in mechanical engineering, that's when my head kind of went, oh, by the way, this happened.
Right. It's like
And
all those emotions were like, hey, we're still
yeah,
here. That 5 years is a long time to be holding that in.
yeah. And it was my studies. It was my studies that kept it all
Yeah.
back, and I could focus on something else. Like I
Right.
said, then when I graduated with my degree, that was it. My head just went,
But I'm
ta-da! Like you
here.
said, I'm still here. And yeah, unfortunately, my mental health spiraled. I started to hear things, so I'd hear people, much like we're talking now, and it would be things like you're fat, you're ugly, she's better without you, you're worthless, and things like that. Because I didn't tell anyone, I didn't open up. Um, Unfortunately, it got worse, and these voices started to take control. So unfortunately, I'd run around the house. I would start smashing doors. I'd start smashing windows, throwing things, and it was because this thing had control of me and
Right.
basically in full psychosis. Again, I didn't speak to anyone, I didn't deal with it, and I then started to see things. So the two main things I ever saw was I'd see blood on my hands, and I still remember to this day before I go into full psychosis was I could see it and I could feel it, and it obviously wasn't there, but it felt real to me. And then the second thing I'd always see would be my brother Will. Obviously, he'd passed away about 5 years previous, so every room that I ran into to get away from this image, he would follow me,
Yeah.
and so then it made me more distress, and then I'd be in even more of a pit and get even worse, and then um, yeah, it got to the point where unfortunately, like I said, I was trying to take my life to the point I was ending up in hospital twice in one night, quite often. Um, Unfortunately, my partner Amber found me quite a few times after the attempts. So she went through the ringer as well. She went through absolute hell and what I put her through. But then when I say I found running for mental health, it was purely just fluke. So I started to meet people who had the same diagnosis that I had. So I'm diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, PTSD, and social anxiety disorder. And Amber helped me meet other people with the same diagnosis. And I met this chap. His name's David, and he had the same diagnosis I had. And I learned that he was a mechanical engineering apprentice. Well, started out as that, and he helped build the Burj Khalifa, the biggest building in the world. I think it's in Dubai.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me think, well, if he's done that, then what's stopping me?
Right.
So my partner said, try and podcast. So it's me and a very old school friend. We just talked about anything, literally from politics to video games, music, TV. My go-to was RuPaul's Drag Race. Things like that. And people then started to send us messages saying, we really like what you're talking about. What's your opinion on this? And so it kind of made me feel like I was accepted for the first time in a very well since I can remember. I felt accepted,
Yeah.
and people started to like me. And then I felt right. I need to do something for myself. And my partner bought me a pair of shoes. Just said, "Go on, let's go for a run. Just see what happens." And I ran down the street, which I still live in, and I literally got down by about a tenth of a kilometer. Like we're talking hardly anywhere, and I was out of breath. I thought I
Yeah.
was going to die. I thought I was going to pass out. So
That
I got
sounds about
myself
normal.
home. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds about
Um,
right.
and I got home and I thought, oh, actually, I feel quite good. Actually, I felt pretty good. And then that just started the obsession. So um, I started to, like I said, ran further and further and further. Started looking after myself a bit better. And yeah, so I lost about 7.5 stone. So that's about 50 kilos in total, which I lost.
Which is
Um,
about what, 100 pounds.
about 100 pounds, yeah, about that.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
so how long did that take you? Because a lot of people are in your position and they're sitting here like, okay, well, if I just start running, I'm going to lose 100 pounds by next week. I'm sure that's not how it works.
no, no, no. To be fair, it was fairly quick for what it was. It was about 7.5 months
Wow.
um, to do
Wow.
it. And the only thing I did was I ate vegetables. I just I ate proper food. I didn't order any more
Right.
takeaways and takeouts and things like that. I went for a run. I just literally went wherever. I didn't go
Yeah.
right. I need to run a 5K. I need to run 6K. There was no structure to it. It was just a case of I really enjoy doing this, and I thought,
Great.
well, what's over that way, and then what's over that way, what's over that way, and that's kind of how it all started. And that's kind of like how I started mental health runner was I found myself in a much better place to where I'm at now. Um, and just because, I know a lot of people run for times, run for PBs and be the fastest person on the planet, which is fair enough. That's absolutely brilliant. If you want to do that, fantastic. By all means, you go for it. You go for your goal. But for me, running is purely just fun. If
Yeah.
there's times where I think, oh, that marathon looks quite good in X amount of months, let's go for it. That half marathon looks fun, let's go for that. And um, yeah, I mean, this year I've signed up to my first ultra just because I thought, that looks quite fun, and it's it's just yeah, it's never going to be a case of I know I'm never going to be the fastest man on the planet. I just know that's never going to
Right.
happen. But it's for me, it makes me feel much more balanced. It makes me feel more healthier. Gives me a positive outlook on life, and it's just complete polar opposite to where I was from back then to now. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like my story, like very condensed.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic story because that's so powerful. You went from, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but you went from trying to take your own life to finding this outlet, which I am such a huge advocate for myself, where it's like people don't realize how powerful running is.
Definitely,
And
yeah,
I was hearing people talk about, the addictive personalities. A lot of people have addictive personalities. And I had thought I kind of have that addictive personality, kind of like, but I've realized my outlet's running with it. I'm addicted to running, which I, in a sense, when I was gonna make a joke, when we get to wanting to run ultras, like you want to run this year, which I think is awesome. I feel like that's where it gets to a disease for us. But you know what? We're there. It's fine. We love running anyways. So, but I want to ask you, so when did you realize the tie between your mental health and running? And like, what was it to you? Did it help you manage it? Or did it really start, I wouldn't say curing it, but where it didn't happen as often? How did that change your mental health with running?
it's quite an interesting one because I know a lot of people say like running is my therapy, and I get that. I do understand when people
Yeah.
say it.
Hmm.
But for me, I don't really see it as a therapy because it's not like the cure. I'll say it like running will not cure your mental health. It's just one of those things.
Right.
It's you know what I mean. It's one of those things. But what I'm saying is it will definitely help. And I mean, from what I've experienced, I can't say to everyone listening and watching this right now that it will make you feel better. But I can say out of my experience, it made me feel much better. To the point where I've made a career a career out of it. But it will make things a lot better, and it helps you have a more positive outlook on life, and it gives you that time just to go be in the moment rather than just thinking I can't do that because I feel stressed or I'm too anxious to leave the house. It's always that baby step. It's always that
Right.
starting off small and just going where what feels comfortable. And that's kind of like how I feel with it, really.
Absolutely. Now, is it something, I guess, in a way? So, would you say today you still have, I guess, like different episodes, like of different problems that arise with your mental health?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I still get times where I feel quite low. I mean,
Right.
for example, the past week previous to us recording now, I've had to have a week off work just because my mental health just deteriorated. With a lot of things going on at home, I had to have some time off work, and it does happen still, but it's helped me realize that there's no shame in going. You know what? I just need to have something to to get better. Now, whether that be therapy, whether that be medication, whatever works, that's up to you. But for me, it's I do still get the odd episode, but it's enough that I can now go, hang on a minute, I'm not feeling too great here. Let's try and do something about it. So I go for a run. And maybe I go for a run, and there's been times where I just burst into tears, and I'm still running. And there's times after that where I'm laughing and having that whole
Right.
broad um, range of emotions. But it helps you realize and be in the moment to go, okay, something's not quite right here. So what can I do? Whereas before, I didn't have that. It was a case of what's happening to me. Am I getting worse? It's all the way to the point, like I said, where I'd try and take my life, and it's helping me kind of um, become. It's almost like cathartic, if you know what I mean, like how you're more present in the moment
Right.
and more level-headed. And I think that's the best bit, really, for me. Is it's more eye-opening. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, like when you're running, especially the longer runs, right? It helps you sort things out in your head that maybe weren't so apparent before. I know for me, it almost gives me a new sense of like looking at things. Because
Yes,
sometimes,
definitely.
you
Yeah.
know, when you're sitting in your house and you're steaming mad or you are having like a problem and you're sitting there and it's just deteriorating, you're like, okay, I got to go do something else
Yeah.
before all of this falls apart. And I think that's pretty much what you're getting at. Like with mental health, you can sort things out, you understand things better.
Yeah, definitely. It gives you that time to go, okay, well, that's either new or I've experienced that before. I know what to do with that. And you can kind of
Right.
not compartmentalize it, but like you can understand it to try and file it away properly, if you know what I mean. Like you can go, okay, well, that belongs there. That belongs there. I can deal with that now. Let's sort that out in a minute. And whereas before, it's just a case of, what do I do?
You can prioritize and you realize what's the
Yeah,
problem, what's not the problem, and what doesn't even need to be addressed because it's not even relevant.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I know you mentioned a lot on your Instagram page that you are I don't want to screw this up. A Brooks Run Happy ambassador?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
What is
That's it.
that
Yeah.
program and what do they stand for with the Run Happy? Because honestly, that's got to be like right in alignment with pretty much your mission in life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Obviously, Brooks Running is all over the world,
Yes.
huge footwear brand, and it's. I've always said to myself, if there was to ever get to a point where a company would take me on as an ambassador, it would always be something that I believe in. And running I believe in because that's kind of what I do.
Big time.
But yeah, being part of the Run Happy team for me is kind of like the whole embodiment of running transforms people's lives, and it's not just a case of being the fastest person or being the most efficient runner in the world. It's just like kind of said, is to be present in the moment, is to be doing what you enjoy. And like I said, is that I don't go for personal best. I don't go to be fast. I literally just go for a run because I enjoy it. It's for me, it's fun. It's always fun. It's never a case of, oh, I'm disappointed because that was supposed to be a half marathon training run, but
Right.
I did a 10K. It's always been a case of, oh, well, 10K, fantastic, brilliant. It's always been the embodiment of how transforming really does change. Transforming, running really does help transform people's lives um, for the better that I've experienced. Whether it be, becoming a brand ambassador like I'm very fortunate to be, or if it's again just so you wake up in the morning with a better outlook. It really does help transform people's lives, and it's something that I've experienced is that it's one of the most inclusive communities in the world where everyone knows what it's like to start from the very beginning. Like from when I ran down the street,
Oh
I thought I
yeah.
was going to pass out, all the way to now doing events in public. And that's what I love about it is that the community is fantastic. Um, the way it makes me feel, so that run happy vitamin and being able to just give something back and to have a brand that I really believe in that, like you said, it's all my values.
Right.
And it's an incredible thing. I mean, they're all over the world. I mean, I know there's one in the USA, obviously where the headquarters is. It's in Seattle. But yeah, because they're all over the world. Obviously, there's a UK team, there's UK and Ireland team. There's a Germany team, an Italy team. It's an incredible community to be part of, and just to be able to hopefully be inspirational for other people who may be starting to run and finding
Absolutely.
a reason or just try something different. Is like you said, it is just kind of what I want to do. Is what I want to try and help people do. So yeah,
It's
it's
like that
it's incredibly important.
that huge message, like don't give up. Like the first couple steps honestly suck. I remember when I started running and you just want to die, to be honest with you. You're like, I'm just gonna lay on the ground and I'm just gonna give up because I'm
Yeah,
done. Like I'm done. But like for some reason you still do it again and again and again and again. And it gets addictive.
it
Now
does. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
let me ask you this, because around the world it's been kind of crazy with COVID, right?
yeah.
How did running come into play for you? And I know maybe there were restrictions on going outside. What did running look like for you during COVID? And how did that help your mental health during that time period specifically?
So in the UK, all the running groups kind of stopped. So I'm quite
Right.
fortunate to have my own mental health running group, and obviously we had to stop that obviously to prevent any transmission going on. There
Right.
was also government guidelines eventually where we could only go out for an hour if it was for exercise, and you're on your own or you're with someone in your household. And yeah, running did become an outlet for me where I knew what it was like to kind of be isolated already because a couple of years previous, I was too scared to leave the house because of my own anxiety.
Oh,
So the first lockdown for us didn't really affect me massively because I'd already had a practice run, and that's the best way I can describe it. It's because I forced that isolation on me, that
right.
quarantine, um,
That's an
and
interesting point. That's definitely something
yeah,
to
yeah,
think about because, like, I mean, like, you aren't the only one with that. So it's almost like you were ready for it, but at the same time, it still has a huge impact.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think my mindset on it was to still try and help people get active, and
Yeah.
I I ran basically laps in my garden. I ran a marathon, um, basically running. My yard is a very small yard. It's quite long, but it's like a thin yard. So I literally just ran up and down. I
How many
measured
laps did it
how
take
long it
you?
about 7.5 hours. I
Oh my
measured how far
god.
it was to from point to point, and then figured out how many times I have to go backwards and forwards.
Okay, so
And
for
yeah, it
the
was
audience,
about
how far was it?
I'm trying to think. I think it was near. It was just over 1,250 laps in total,
Oh my god.
and that's going like that basically, up down up down up down down.
That is an entire oh my gosh, that mental toughness that you have is insane because I think after 10 laps I'd be like, I'm done. I'm
Yeah,
out. Like, this is so boring. That's insane. 1,000 over 1,000 laps. Let's
yeah,
just
yeah,
stick with that.
yeah.
That is tremendous.
And yeah, and that's kind of I thought, well, if people can't go out or they're too worried to be outside, you know what I mean, and
Right?
try and do something at home, and I did what we've got in the UK called the Three Peaks Challenge. So it's the highest mountains in Wales, Scotland, and England. And again, I calculated the height of every step of my staircase, um, and then basically calculated how many steps I'd have to do up and down to do the Three Peaks Challenge to conquer three mountains. Um, and that was over again. That was over 1,000 times going up and down the stairs,
Oh my
um,
god.
to the point where my wife was at work. She came home and half the staircase had fallen in because I just ran up and down the stairs, which led to some very interesting conversations. Um, but yeah, and that's kind of my outlook was I thought, you know what, I've been there. I've been in the situation where I can't leave
Yeah.
the house for my own reasons, and how can I help others? And that's why I did some. So, well, people say it was stupid, but I really found it fun. It was just nice to. It was really warm for the first time in England for a long time. It was coming out of I think March April time, just starting to get warm again. It was starting to get
Right.
sunnier, so it was nice to be outside, just do a couple of laps, and yeah, so yeah, that's how I kind of got around it really.
So,
Was to try and
how did
motivate
you
it.
reach out to other people with it?
It was just Instagram. It was just basically I
Yeah.
put on
Powerful.
Instagram, this is what I'm doing. I've just done this. There was, I actually for about half of it until my phone died. I actually live streamed the the event, and it must have been the most boring thing to watch because it was me running up and down down a yard. But yeah, it was just things like that to go. I'm doing this. Some people might say it's stupid. Some people might be looking at me and going, "I'm not doing that," which is fine. But hopefully it helped people to go, "Yeah, go on then. If he can do it, then why can't I? Why can't I just see what I can do?" And it wasn't just a case of I'm running a marathon, so if you're going outside, you must do it as well.
Yeah.
It was a case of just challenge yourself. I've ran a marathon before. I've ran London Marathon before I did that, but I've never ran a marathon in my yard.
Right. And most people will not take that step. And most people, if they have, even if they have a couple acres, they're like, nah, a couple laps, I'm good. I don't need it. Not back and forth. That takes a lot of mental toughness. Going
Yeah,
up and
yeah.
down your stairs, lots of mental toughness. So I want to ask you, if somebody is going through not exactly the same thing, obviously, we're all different human beings, but if somebody's going through something similar, where they're really struggling with their mental health, maybe they're looking for that message that they just, sometimes you just need to get out of your own head. What is that message that you needed, that you like to share, that maybe will be able to reach out to somebody else in your position that you were in to help them get out by using running?
So there's two mantras basically that I've learned that I live my life by. Um, and the first one, for the people in the UK, it's 1 in 4 people are affected with a mental health condition. But so I'll use the American number. So I think it's 1 in 5 in the USA are affected by mental health
Wow.
at
Yeah.
some point in their life. So to really think about that is, if there is 1 in 5 people, or for us 1 in 4 people living with a mental health condition, then that means there's always 4 other people in the USA to help start a conversation. It's to say, "Are you okay?" And it's perfectly fine to say, "I'm not okay," and it's perfectly fine to go,
Absolutely.
"Actually, let's talk." Um, the second one, and it's kind of like something that I've adapted from a student where I spoke to in London, where basically I believe if you go through any time scale with a mental health condition, whether it be 1 second, minute, hour, day, whatever, with a mental health condition, you're no longer a sufferer, but you're a survivor. Now, when I gave this talk in a place called Lewisham, just outside London, a student stood up to me and just in front of everyone, about a group of like 60 students, and said, "I don't like that." And I thought, "Oh no, I'm so
Oh
sorry. I
no.
didn't mean to offend you. Right, what would you say?" And this student said to me, "I'm not a survivor. I'm a thriver." And I thought, you know what? I can't disagree more. I completely agree. And that's kind of where I made this word called surthriver, being a surthriver, because no matter whatever time scale you go through, whether it be again 1 second, minute, hour, day, whatever,
Yeah.
you're no longer a sufferer, but you're a surthriver because you've survived in that 1 second straight away. You've proved to yourself you can do it, and now you're thriving with it. Um, and that's really the best advice I can give. And looking back is just going, that's how I can rationalize it. Is that yeah, it there's no sugarcoating it. Mental health is really hard. It is really tricky, and it is a really rubbish thing to go through. Um,
Yeah.
you might experience it more than once, and I really hope people don't. But if you do, it's one of those things. It's the curse that we know that is mental health. But every second that you go by knowing that there's something wrong, and even just acknowledging that there's something wrong, you've already straight away admitted you need to get some help.
Right.
And never underestimate how hard it is or how strong you are just to even go, something isn't quite right. And I need to get some help. I need to speak to someone, because that's the hardest bit. It's like we said earlier about baby steps. That
Yeah.
first step is the biggest, smallest step you'll ever take, is to go, I need some support. Now, if that is, I need some support to get running, okay, brilliant. There's people like us on social media trying to help people get active. If it's
Absolutely.
to someone go, I need to speak to someone, speaking to their parents, speaking to family members, speaking to friends, work colleagues, whoever, that is such a small step, but it will always be the biggest you'll take in recovery. You've done the hard bit. It will never get any harder than that. So that's probably the best advice I can give. If does that answer the kind of what you
Yeah.
asked?
No, 100% that answers it, because it is, you're right. Mental health is tricky. It's
Yeah,
not I'm gonna say this to myself mantra, and tomorrow all my problems are gone. That's just not how it goes.
no,
And
no,
like,
no.
this, like, I'm huge into the behavior side of it. And it's like one thing can trigger you and send you spiraling. And you
Yeah,
might not even know what that was. Like, you may not even know in that moment, oh, I need to avoid this because it's going to send me spiraling. No, it happens so fast and you're down. And I think that's the most, like, that's the hardest part about mental health and why people see it as such a struggle. But I think once you start realizing it, once you start finding outlets, once you start finding ways to cope, once you start finding things that work for you and you get into that routine, you really do start thriving instead of just surviving, right? It really
Yeah,
does
exactly. Yeah,
help you. Absolutely. Now, I always ask
yeah,
everybody this at
100%.
the end of towards the podcast. What is, I'm going to take away running from you though. You can't say running. What is something, a
Okay.
routine, a habit? It could be journaling. It could be, I mean, gardening in your garden as you run through it and with your marathon, whatever it is. What is one thing that you do every single day that helps you run your life so life doesn't run you?
That's actually a really good question. um, is I would say is just acknowledge where you are, and it's kind of like a self admiration is the really the wrong word, but I can't really describe it any other way. Is every
Yeah,
time I wake up in the morning and before I go to work, if I'm waking up and it's a day off, is just to acknowledge where I'm at and to go, okay, say I haven't got running, say I haven't started running and I've got my own things going on, is just to acknowledge where you are, whether it's you've woke up and you've seen another day, because I know what it's like to not to close your eyes and not want to open them up again. I totally get that, but just for me, I find it very powerful to go, okay, I'm here. I've woken up. I'm on day whatever of my life. What can I do today that will either make me feel better or improve my life? And
yeah,
I think that everything that I do in my life, whether it be as mental health runner, whether it be as Thomas Dunning, mechanical engineer, it's always been a case of if I can look back on my life and say, I did that, or at least I tried, that's all that matters. And
absolutely.
that's kind of how I'd see it. That's how, if I didn't have running, was, as long as I can look back on my life when when I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, and go, oh, I did that. Yeah, that was pretty good. Or, didn't quite work out, but I gave it a go. You know what I mean?
Living
That
life with no regrets.
that's it. Yeah, and it's much like with your recovery and mental health. You don't know until you try it. It might not work.
It's true.
I'll put it very bluntly. It might not work, but in the same instance, it might be the thing that helps. So, as
It's
like I
true.
said, as long as you can look back and go, at least I tried, or I did that. That's what I do.
I absolutely love that. Now, if people want to connect with you, hear more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can contact me from my website, which is mentalhealthrunner.co.uk, or you can please feel free to message me, follow me, whatever on Instagram, which is at mental_health_runner. And yeah, honestly, send any questions, welcome any question, whether it be who's your favorite drag queen on RuPaul's Drag Race season 7, whatever, or all the way to, at what point did you know you need to get help? Anything. I
Absolutely.
honestly welcome any question.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, I appreciate you coming on the podcast today. This was just such a touching story and especially tied in with running. Always the best
Yeah, no,
conversations. So
thank you
I
so much for having
appreciate
me.
it. And stay warm there in the UK.
Yeah, it's currently -2 degrees, so yes, definitely.
Oh, that's awful. That's not good. I'm in Florida. It was like 70. So
Oh,
so it's like 70, so it's probably like in the 20s, 20
yeah,
Celsius.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's British summertime.
Yeah. That's awful. Well, have a great night and stay warm.
Thank you. See you later.